Hey there, Foxy gamers! Welcome back to Planet Coaster Challenge Mode. It's gonna be a little bit different this episode because I decided to do a time lapse of adding some decor to this roller coaster we've been working on. I really wanted to get something at least sort of finalized and have something really cool in our park. So I decided to spend the time doing this. And as you can see right here, I started out using the wrong rocks and I'm like, oh shit, whoops. But at that point, I was too lazy to change it because I'd already spent time putting those rocks down and I didn't feel like redoing it. So I just thought, nobody on the roller coaster is going to realize that those are different rocks when they see them at two different times. And then I decided I wanted to put in a waterfall by this little piece that comes out around the side of the mountain. For those of you who've played this game a lot, you know that there is no waterfall available to actually do, so I decided to kind of do one manually. It's not very realistic that it's a tiny little lake on the top, but I wasn't planning on this from the beginning, so I didn't really make my mountain in a way that there'd actually be a lake big enough for a waterfall, but it's a theme park and we can pretend. I used these special effects water spout jets, the large ones in particular, because they had a much bigger volume, and just started putting down a whole bunch of them. You can see I tried checking out the other water ones because I've seen some people use like the thinner ones and put them in a big huge row, but that didn't really give the effect that I wanted. So I just decided to use the large one and spread it out the way I'm doing and kind of fill in the gaps after I have my shape laid down. So you'll see me piecing everything out and making sure the waterfall is going the direction that I want it to go. Alright, so I wanted to talk a little bit about this series and where it's been going, what I see happening. And the thing is, I started out this series because I was really excited about challenge mode finally coming to Planet Coaster, because there was no challenge mode pretty much all through the alpha. I think, yeah, completely all through the alpha. So it only came out in beta, which I didn't really have a chance to play until the game released. So I thought it would be fun because, like I've said many times before, I find it really entertaining to start something from nothing and become big and successful. Like, this what I'm doing right here should not be something that I should be able to do very easily, because landscaping should cost a lot of money, a lot of money, and I should not be this successful already at this point in our series. But the game has some serious balancing issues right now. It didn't take us very long to actually be successful, so I'm a little bit disappointed at that because, like I've stated before, I'm not the most imaginative person when it comes to creating stuff. This is about as creative as I've gotten. So anyway, what I wanted to talk about is what I want to do with this series. I think for myself personally, I feel like I don't have anything else left to add in a particular challenge mode because, like I said, you can see we have $120,000 and that's a lot of money in this game. So it's basically turned into sandbox mode. And if that's the case, I'd rather start something anew and actually make it look pretty from the beginning. So what I wanted to ask you guys is I wanted you to vote on my ideas for where to go with this Planet Coaster slot that I have every other day in the mornings. And I know some of you have been really enjoying this series, so I am giving you that as an option. But here are the ideas that I have, and I'd really appreciate it if you could let me know in the comments which one you would prefer of these four. So the first option is, of course, to continue the challenge mode. I'll just keep going the way we've been going and continue taking suggestions from you all for anything that you want to see. My second idea is to start a short series where we build a, quote, dark roller coaster from scratch. And it would be no time lapse whatsoever. It would strictly be a series of, hey, let's build this together, and I'll show you piece by piece how I'm laying down this track and editing the track, adding the scenery, sculpting the land around the track, and so on and so forth. The third option is to build a Lego park on sandbox mode. I've had this idea in my mind for a while that I thought it would be really fun, considering the pieces that are available to us, to build a park that is in the theme of, like, the Lego movie, essentially. We would make the characters from it and some of the scenes from it and just kind of theme everything around that. And that would be a sandbox park, obviously, because I wouldn't want to have to worry about any sort of management in that case. And my last option for you is to start a series on learning how to get better at custom buildings. For those of you who've been watching, you know that I am not good at doing such a thing, and I realize one of the best ways to do that is to actually download things from the Steam Workshop, pick them apart, and try to rebuild them myself from scratch. And I would start small and get bigger, and then that way we could learn together and you could see what I start from and how I get better. And yeah, sort of go from there. So let me know what you think in the comments below. If you do see somebody else in the comments section say which series they want, and it's the same one that you would like to see, feel free to upvote their comment too, as that would help me figure out which ones are the most popular without having to actually tally up all the comments myself. So yeah, let me know, because this is for you guys, and I mean, you know, it's for me too, because I want to have fun, but I also want to do something that you guys would enjoy watching, so please let me know which of those 4 options you prefer. So getting back to our time lapse here, you could see that I was adding a bunch of ferns and vines and everything over to the waterfall because it's a very wet area and those things are likely to grow. I wanted to make it as green as possible in that spot specifically, since that's where most of the moisture goes. It just kind of adds another level of realism to it. So you can see that I'm placing trees individually here. Not the fastest way to do it. In a moment you will see that I decided to make a blueprint with a few trees together and save that out so that I could just have sort of a random grouping of trees that I could place with the blueprint, and then kind of rotate it around and make it seem like it's not just the same cluster of trees everywhere. But I did have to go back in and adjust some of the trees because a few of them looked like they were sort of hanging out in midair and some of them were too low, etc. I think it worked pretty well though, and it definitely saved me a lot of time as opposed to placing all of the trees one by one. I did the same thing with the rocks too, although that didn't work out quite as well as the trees did, just because they're not as tall, so when they are sticking through the ground, they're less likely to have parts of them showing than the trees are. It didn't really bother me that the trees were sometimes poking out of the ground, not from their trunk, but kind of partway up the tree, but I thought that it looked kind of cool. Like maybe those trees were just very full down at the bottom. So in the end, I kind of decided it'd actually be faster with the rocks to just place them one by one, since they actually stick to the ground fairly well. The trees I didn't want to do that with because I wanted them all to be pointing straight up as though they would be growing, right? But the way the game works is it will align it to the surface that your cursor is over, so it didn't work out that way with the trees. But the blueprint thing was alright. Anyway, that's about all I added on our roller coaster at this time. But I will leave you at one last little playthrough of the ride. So please do enjoy that, and like I said, leave a comment below which series you would prefer me to use this slot as. Thanks a lot, everyone. I hope you got something out of this time lapse, and I look forward to seeing you next time. And until then, stay foxy, everyone.